We respect that, but the fact is that using whether it's people different from me, nationalism, populism, is a very dangerous threat to democracy, not just in America, where we're seeing it play out, but in the whole world. In the context of a fight between democracy and autocracy, not mine, but the version of populism, ethno-nationalist populism, which tries to bring down education and fake news, the media, which is a protector of democracy, that version is contributing in countries other than our country and is a danger to democracy. We think democracy is on the ballot in America. It's a victory that we must win.
Today, we're watching Nancy Pelosi getting humiliated in a fiery debate as she claims that nationalism is a threat to democracy. We're gonna listen to her speech and then to the response by Winston Marshall. Let's watch.
Because it will only make matters worse if they have another stay at what they're doing to the courts in our country, the fear that they're instilling in jurists in our country, the suppression of the vote in our country, the role of their big, dark, rich, billionaire donors who don't want to pay taxes, suffocating the airways from the fossil fuel industry and the gun industry and the rest of that. So money and populism, sadly, have gone together with this ethno-nationalist, what they call elite, which we call education, free press, and the rest. So I urge you to think in terms of the word. It says it's a threat. You're going to deny that it's a threat to democracy in the versions that have emerged in America so clearly? And why does everybody here say to me, what happens if he gets elected? Well, you can't let that happen, because for us, this election is Washington crossing the Delaware. This is about a democratic, no offense to the Brits, but the fact is also,
I think this is the biggest nonsense that I've ever heard. She obviously wants to keep her power in Washington and don't want Donald Trump to go against her once he is in the White House. Of course, that's exactly what it is. She is for the elite. She is for the donor class. She is getting rich on the back of the average American. And Donald Trump is against that. Donald Trump wants to work for the people, and she wants to maintain her power and her grip over the American institutions.
That what happened here at Runnymede, the Magna Carta, yes, the first parliament and the rest of that, has a great contribution to democracy in the world, but our country was founded on the principle that all people are created equal. A constitution that tried to implement that wasn't perfect from the beginning, but they were able to amend it to end slavery and all the other remnants of what came before. But populism in the version of Andrew Jackson, which was described here, is not the threat that we are talking about. That's part of it. But the fact that's so sad is a misrepresentation of people who exploit the populist attitude of, I want to have my say, and then use it to get elected and then hurt those people the most. Hurt those people the most with it, as I say, unfair taxation, unfair distribution of resources. A budget should be a statement of our national values. Instead, it's a vehicle to put more money in the pockets of his contributors. And on top of all of that, taking away health care and the rest by lying about it all. That's about deaths, this, and abortion. It's not about any of that. So
she obviously doesn't know what she's talking about. Honestly, I haven't seen any point at all to indicate anything on the Republican side that she's talking about right there in this clip. Let's go over to the response from Winston. It is a must watch. Let's hear it.
you know, is the politics of the ordinary people against an elite. Populism is not a threat to democracy. Populism is democracy. And why else have universal suffrage if not to keep elites in check? Ladies and gentlemen, given the success of Trump, and more recently Javier Milei taking a chainsaw to the state behemoth of Argentina's bureaucratic monster, you'd be mistaken for thinking this was a right-wing populist age. But that would be ignoring Occupy Wall Street. That would be ignoring Jeremy Corbyn's for the many, not the few. That would be ignoring Bernie against the billionaires, RFK Jr. against Big Pharma, and more recently, George Galloway against his better judgment. Now, all of them, including Galloway, recognize genuine concerns of ordinary people being otherwise ignored by the establishment.
You can already tell that in this audience everybody is rooting for Winston Marshall and his ideas. Nobody likes Nancy Pelosi right there. In this audience, you can already tell that.
I'm actually rather surprised that our esteemed opposition, Congressman Pelosi, is on that side of the motion. I thought the left was supposed to be anti-elite. I thought the left was supposed to be anti-establishment. Today, particularly in America, the globalist left have become the establishment.
I agree 100% with that one.
I suppose for Ms. Pelosi to have taken this side of the motion, she'd be arguing herself out of a job. But it's here in Britain where right and left populists united for the supreme act of democracy, Brexit. Polls have showed the number one reason people voted for Brexit was sovereignty, for more democracy. Thank you. What was the response of the Brussels elite? They did everything in their power to undermine the democratic will of the British people, and the Westminster elite were just as disgraceful. As we've heard, David Cameron called the voters fruitcakes, loonies, and closet racists. The Liberal Democrats did everything they could to overturn a democratic vote. Keir Starmer campaigned for a second referendum. Elites would have had us voting and voting and voting until we voted their way. Indeed, that's what happened in Ireland and in Denmark. Let's look at some of the other populist movements. The Hong Konger populist revolt is literally called the pro-democracy movement. The farmer revolts from Netherlands to Germany, France, Greece to Sri Lanka. Farmers are taking their tractors to the road to protest ESG policy that's floated down to us from those all-knowing, infallible elites of Davos.
He's making a great point right there. People are revolting against an overseeing government that want to impose their will on the people, and people did not vote for that at all.
The trucker movement in Canada became anti-elitist when petty tyrant Prime Minister Justin Trudeau froze their bank accounts, not the behavior of a democratic head of state. The Gilets jaunes in France, ULEZ in London, working people protesting policy that hurt them. And how are they treated? They're called conspiracy theorists. They're called far right by the mayor as well. Ladies and gentlemen, populism is the voice of the voiceless. The real threat to democracy is from the elites. Now, don't get me wrong. We need elites. If President Biden has shown us anything, we need someone to run the countries. When the president has severe dementia, it's not just America that crumbles, the whole world burns. But let's examine the elites.
I agree. At the head of any country, we need someone that is strong, We need a strong leader. We need someone who will stop at nothing to accomplish the mission that he has been elected for. And primarily that is protecting the country, ensuring the safety and security of its own citizens.
European corporations spend over 1 billion euros a year lobbying Brussels. US corporations spend over $2 billion a year lobbying in DC. 2/3 of Congress receive funding from pharmaceutical companies. Pfizer alone spent $11 million in 2021. They made over $10 billion in profit. No wonder then that 66% of Americans think the economy is rigged against them for the rich and the powerful. And by the way, we used to have a word for when big business and big government were in cahoots. And I think any students here of early 20th century Italian history know what I'm talking about. What about big tech? Throughout the pandemic, Biden's team, the FBI, and the Department of Homeland Security colluded with big tech in censoring dissenting voices, not kooky conspiracy theorists. People like Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, the Stanford epidemiologist. People like Harvard scientist Martin Kulldorff. People spreading true information, not misinformation, true information at odds with the government narrative.
Yeah, I think he's citing right there some great example that we can all remember, where the truth were hidden from the average people by the government.
Need I remind you, democracy without free speech is not democracy. This was a direct breach, by the way, of the First Amendment. Before COVID, intelligence services colluded with big tech to have Trump suspended off Twitter. Yes, the same platform which hosted the Taliban and Ayatollah deaf to Israel Khomeini, they thought the president crossed the line when he tweeted on Jan 6th, quote, "Remain peaceful, no violence, respect the law and our great men and women in blue." That's a quote. You may be thinking now that Trump is a populist. You are right. He didn't accept the 2020 elections, and he should have. So should Hillary in 2016, so should Brussels, and so should Westminster in 2016, and so too should Congresswoman Pelosi, instead of saying the 2016 election was, quote, hijacked. Quote, hijacked.
It was.
Thank you.
That's everybody laughing at Nancy Pelosi and her ideas and her speech. Honestly, that's humiliating for her.
Doesn't mean that we don't accept the results of it.
Okay. What about the mainstream media? Let me read you some mainstream media headlines. The New Yorker, the day before the 2016 election. The case against democracy. The Washington Post, the day after the election. The problem with our government is democracy. The LA Times, June 2017. The British election is a reminder of the perils of too much democracy. Vox, June 2017. The two eminent political scientists say the problem with democracy is voters. New York Times, June 2017. The problem with participatory democracy is the participants.
That's honestly very sad to see all of these newspapers run by elites and corporate elites that want to basically remove the vote of the people, remove the voice of the majority, remove democracy to favor their own interests, to advance their own political ideas and their businesses, to make more money on the back of the people. They are profiting from the system and ignoring the struggles of the average American and European as well. It's sad to see that these people are still allowed to run any kind of organization today.
Mainstream media elites are part of a class who don't just disdain populism, they disdain the people. If the Democrats had put half their energy into delivering for the people, Trump wouldn't even have a chance in 2024. He shouldn't have a chance. You've had power for 4 years. From the fabricated Steele dossier to trying to take him off the ballot in both Maine and Colorado, the Democrats are the anti-Democrat party. All we need now is the Republicans to come out as the pro-monarchist party. Ladies and gentlemen, populism is not a threat to democracy, but I'll tell you what is. It's elites ordering social media to censor political opponents. It's police shutting down dissenters, be it anti-monarchists in this country or gender-critical voices here, or last week in Brussels, the National Conservative movement. I'll tell you what is a threat to democracy. It's Brussels, DC, Westminster, the mainstream media, big tech, big pharma, corporate collusion, and the Davos cronies. The threat to democracy comes from those who write off ordinary people as deplorable. The threat to democracy comes from those who smear working people as racists. The threat to democracy comes from those who write off working people as populists. And I'll say one last thing. This populist age can be brought to an end at the snap of a finger. All that needs to be done is for elites to start listening to, respecting, and, God forbid, working for ordinary people. Thank you.
Great speech, great idea, great point. Honestly, it was beautiful to watch Nancy Pelosi getting destroyed on this idea. She claims that nationalism and populism is a threat to democracy, whereas it is actually the complete opposite. And people voted en masse for Donald Trump, just showing you exactly that. They wanted change. They wanted their ideas respected. They wanted their interest before the interest of the elite and the working class. Wanted the cost of living to go down. They wanted inflation to go down as well. People just want common things, common sense. They want common sense in our own government. They don't want any fraud, waste, and abuse anymore. They want illegal immigration to stop. They want peace and prosperity all over the world. Foreign wars to come to an end. And of course, they want to afford a decent living for themselves and their family. And hopefully that's what Donald Trump is gonna deliver in the future. We'll see what happens and report it all right there on the channel. So thanks for watching. Let me know what you think about this below this video. I hope you enjoyed it and click right there to watch the next video, and I will see you there. Bye bye.